like that. We ain't going out like that. Watch me go and bounce right back. Cause we ain't going out like that, no. We ain't going out like that. We ain't going out like that. Watch me go and bounce right back. We ain't going out like that.
General Rich Clark, and I did not give him a formal introduction because I kind of would like him to introduce himself. You know, when we were putting together programming for these 2 days, we obviously put a lot of time and thought into it and try to put programming together that's meaningful to all of you. And, you know, it dawned on me, you know, everybody knows Rich, who he is, obviously seen him. Most of you in this room, other than the New Year's Six Bowls, haven't really met him, haven't heard from him. Obviously, Rich is going to be around most of you in this room the next couple days for the first time. So, Rich, if you wouldn't mind, why don't we start? This is, you know, you strike me as a person that doesn't like talking about yourself too much, but at the same time, this is the part you don't need to prepare for. If you don't know it, who does? But tell us a little bit about where you come from, what led you to enroll in the Air Force Academy, play football there, and then ultimately become the superintendent.
I'm Rich. Hi. Thank you first, Nick, for having me. It's great, and to have our team here is just a real honor and a privilege, and I certainly appreciate seeing so many of our friends from the bowl organizations. It's just great to connect, and thank you for doing this to you and your whole team. So I was in the Air Force for 38 years, and I retired last June, and I retired June 1st, and I started at CFP on June 4th. So I just hit the ground running, and it has been amazing. I've enjoyed my time. The transition has been good, but we'll talk a little bit more about CFP. But why I went into the Air Force, Nick asked, my family is not military, and so I went to the Air Force Academy because my football coach, Ken Hatfield, came to my house, talked to my mother, and said, hey, just send him out for a visit. There was no way I was going to a service academy. They yell at people and make you do push-ups and stuff. I was like, I'm not doing that. And he came to my house and ate dinner with us. The electricity went out in our house. And my mother said, well, we'll see you later, Coach. And he says, no, I'm going to stay right here with y'all. And he talked to my mother, and she was like, you know what? Just go out there and see the Air Force Academy. It's a free trip, and you've never been out there. I went, and I fell in love with the place. And honestly, she goes, when I came back and told her I was going, she's going, what? I just wanted you to go visit. Why are you joining the Army? I was like, it's not the Army, Mom, it's the Air Force. And she was like, but you need to get an education. I said, it is, Mom. I'm going to go get a degree. And I went, and I lived my dream. I played college football there 4 years. I became a pilot, and honestly, it was football that opened that door for me. Had it not been for that, I don't know what I'm doing right now. I'm probably doing something worse than what I'm doing, for sure. But it was football, and it changed me as far as my trajectory. It changed who I am as a man, and I owe it all, really, to Coach Ken Hatfield, Coach DeBerry. Fisher DeBerry was our coach for 2 years. And it just changed everything. And I think my family, my son, my daughter, my wife, all agree that our life in the Air Force was amazing, and it just set our family off into a good place. And to come now be a part of college football, the sport that I love and have always loved, and to be able to be a part of it and to make a difference for so many other student athletes is an honor and a privilege, and I'm just glad to be here.
You mentioned you were hired in 2023, late in the year. You didn't start until last June 2024. So it's been almost a year on the job now. Tell us how your transition has gone from Air Force Superintendent to Executive Director of the CFP.
Well, from my perspective, it's gone great, But I will say I'll say this. I love it more than I ever imagined I would. I mean, I absolutely love it. The team that we have at the CFP is just phenomenal. And I told someone today, I said, the best thing that I did the thing that I did that made this successful was joining that team. And our, Byron Hatch and Dave Marmion, our foundation, all of the people on our small 24-person team, it is a privilege and an honor to work with them. I love going into work every day. And they have made this transition so great for me and for my wife, Amy, but it's been amazing. I'll say on the other hand, though, it is way harder than I thought it would be. I can't, there are so many things that are just dynamic changes in college football, college athletics in general, that I didn't expect, that, my eyes were opened, and it is work. My hat's off to our commissioners. The job that they have is absolutely incredible and daunting. And I've lived in a world of uncertainty before, but I didn't expect that it was going to be as uncertain as it is now just for me. I can't imagine their world and what they're dealing with right now. So there's been a lot of things that I really love about the job, and there's been some things that I don't love as much. I'll just put it that way. But overall, it's been so much better than I ever imagined it would be.
Well, Rich, expand on that a little bit. What have you found most surprising about your new role?
I think I'll go back to sort of the uncertainty in college athletics. And I don't think that that's a general statement. I think that's a statement right now. Where we are in the history of college sports, we're at an inflection point, and we all understand the things that are happening with, the House ruling, with NIL, with the transfer portal, and just even with the college football playoff. I know all you guys think I'm going to come up here and tell you what the new format's going to be and how many games there's going to be in it and all these different things, but we are in a world of uncertainty. And I don't think that I expected that. I think I was coming from the military. There's a lot of uncertainty in that world always. I didn't expect that I was going to come into even more uncertainty with college athletics. I thought, oh man, it's football. I'm going to go to football games. I'm going to eat good food. I'm going to meet great people. Ooh, yeah, I underestimated what I was getting into. But again, I absolutely love it. And it's just been a phenomenal experience for me.
Well, not only were you starting a new job, but it was also the first year of the new expanded 12-team playoff. So it's kind of double duty for you. Looking back on this first year, what has been the overall assessment of how things went?
Again, from my perspective, is outstanding. You talk to some of the commissioners, they might have some different ideas about things, which are good ideas. But I would say our goal, and as soon as Byron and Dave and the team and I, in the first week that I was there, our goal was to make sure that we did everything that we could to make this first college football playoff a huge success. We knew we weren't going to get it 100% right, and we knew that there was just going to be things that we were going to have to change. But we also knew that if we didn't put our best foot forward and we didn't make it as good as it could possibly be, that it would be hard to grow it into the future. And to make those changes and to do the things that are going to really allow it to reach its full potential. So I think that we did a great job of landing well for this first year. There are certainly things that we're looking back on and that we need to fix. And the commissioners are deep into that right now to help us determine how we're going to adjust and how we're going to move it into the future. But I felt like it went really well. The campus games were just spectacular. I went to 2 of them. I went to Notre Dame and Ohio State. The atmosphere was just amazing. And then I watched one of them on TV. I couldn't have been more thrilled with how that went off. So my hat's off to not just our team, but the campuses and what they did to make those games amazing. And then the quarterfinals and semifinals had everything we hoped they would have. The pageantry of the bowls to make them just spectacular was really, really, I think, a boost to the whole playoff to lead us into a great champ game in Atlanta. And the host city in Atlanta was amazing. All of our friends that are there to help us make that game what it was. I just felt like every step of the way we did what I think we reached our potential there, but we still have a lot to go. We've got a lot of lessons learned, and we're going to get better.
Take us behind the scenes at the CFP headquarters. What are the conversations that are being had now, and what, if any, changes are you considering?
Yeah, so you mean like the conversations I can talk? I'll give you the conversations I can talk about. So
Even the ones you can't talk about.
really,
we're
all
all friends
about
in
them?
here.
All
Yeah.
right, we're all friends. I'll be honest. Right now, our main conversations, I'll say, the last 2 months have been, how do we get better? We've been doing a lot of hot washing, as I call it, meaning looking back, getting lessons learned, not just within our team, but from all of our partners. We've talked to our bowl partners. We've talked to ESPN. We've worked with the campuses to get everything that we can so that we can get better next year. And if you're not getting better every day, there is no end to better. And you have to look back. Every strong organization tries to improve at every step of the way, no matter how good you are. And then when we look at how we're going to move forward, the big conversation is really about our format. How do we help the commissioners? Because our 10 commissioners and the Notre Dame athletic director are really the decision makers on what our format looks like, what the playoff will look like next year. So that is a big part of our conversation within CFP, to make sure that we're getting them the information that they need to make smart decisions. And I know that there's a bit of impatience among fans, because everybody wants to know, what's the playoff going to be? How many teams? Are we going to do seeding versus ranking? What's this going to look like, and why can't we just make a decision? I will tell you that as a fan that I am, and seeing it from the inside, I appreciate the deliberateness that the commissioners are going through. They're being very deliberate. They're not rushing into this decision on what this format's going to look like, what the CFP is going to look like, because they know that when we make this decision, it's going to impact all of college football and, frankly, all of college athletics. And so they are taking their time. They're getting all the information they need. And every meeting we have with them, usually we come back with more questions. And at some point, though, very soon, I hope and I think we're going to have a really strong format that we're going to be able to move forward with and just grow this even more. So our conversations are, what can we do to help our commissioners make the best decisions that they can possibly make?
Rich, tell us about that process a little bit for making these tweaks to the overall format, and what are the things the management committee is considering. You kind of mentioned a little bit. Can we expect 14 teams? Are you moving up the schedule? Will conference automatic bids stick around?
Well, so as far as the number of teams go, it's 12 to 16, right? So let's just hit the average. I'm guessing 14 could be a good number, but the commissioners have not decided on that. And I'll say 12 worked out really well. 16 is a lot to get on TV and to have the time in the schedule to play. 14 is kind of hitting into a sweet spot. So I think they're probably, and I don't want to get too far ahead of them, but 12 or 14 is where they're looking. But again, there's challenges with growing it and making it bigger. And we work with ESPN, we work with the NFL, because sometimes those are sacred spots where we can televise the games. So there's a lot that goes into those decisions. So I do believe that 16 is going to be really hard for us to get to. The commissioners will evaluate that and understand. And I just believe that there'll be 12 or 14 is where I think they're going to land, somewhere in that, between those two. Ranking versus seeding is another big part of this. So in the process of CFP, as you all know, the top 5 conference champions, top 5 highest ranked conference champions, were 4 of them were afforded a bye, and they were seeded 1, 2, 3, and 4. Well, there's a question now: should we just go with a straight ranking, allow those conference champions to go into the playoff, but we rank them in accordance with the selection committee ranking? So that's another discussion, because it was feedback from fans, feedback from some of the schools as to how we should maybe look at this. So they're thinking about that right now too. And we're hopeful that we'll have a decision there. And there's pros and cons both ways, but they're being very measured about that. There's other questions about things that are internal, like what's our governance going to look like? How is the CFP going to actually make its decisions as a team, the 10 commissioners and the Notre Dame AD? How are they going to make decisions? How do we get to the voting, the sort of process that they're going to have to go through? That's something that we're working on right now and is very important for the future. And then there's all of our agreements with our bowl partners, our agreements with ESPN. Those are other things that we have ongoing that we have to get settled now so that we can move into the future. So there's just a lot going on. There's a lot on their plates, and sometimes I forget that we're just one sport that they have to deal with. They have campus administrators. They have all these other sports that they're working through. They have their own board of directors, and we're just one part of that, although in my view, the most important part. But we have to work with them and help them to be able to make the great decisions that they're going to make for college football.
As you mentioned earlier, the first round campus games were very well received. There's been speculation that even more playoff games will be on campus. So forgive me, I'm going to put you on the spot here. You're in a room full of 40 bowl executive directors and their staffs who are very passionate about this great enterprise that we hold dear to our heart. How do you see bowl games continuing to fit in the equation in the future?
So that is another question that the commissioners are wrestling with, because there was such great success with those first-round campus games, and everybody goes, oh my gosh, we need more of that. But then there's also other people that go, the pageantry, the traditions, the greatness of our bowl games at the quarterfinals and the semifinals, especially our New Year's Six bowl partners, they just did an outstanding job putting those games on and making them excellent. So the commissioners are looking at what the options are. There's always pros and cons both ways. The time of year for the quarterfinals, New Year's Day, New Year's Eve, that's a hard time on campuses. Students are gone. You may not have the same pageantry that you had in those first round games. A lot of the faculty and staff, people that are going to run the games, are gone. So there's some pros and cons, but I think the pros for staying at the bowls are that you do that. New Year's Day is your sweet spot. New Year's Eve is your sweet spot. You know how to put on great events. You know how to make it look spectacular on television and for the fans in the stadium. And the commissioners recognize that. Don't think for a minute that they don't value what our bowl partners bring. And don't think for a minute that they don't value, whether you're a part of CFP or not, just what bowls do for college football. They're a tradition. I mean, our New Year's Six partners, they were talking about, we just had a briefing the other day, their executive directors have 100 years of experience in running bowls and making them great. And Jeff Hundley has 90 of those years. So it's pretty interesting. Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't see you there, Jeff. My bad. No, but they have the experience and they know how to do it. So the commissioners are really looking at this and trying to understand exactly what it would be. But here's the thing. They owe it to their colleges. They owe it to the presidents of those universities, the athletic directors, to take a hard look. And if somebody says, we think that these games should move from the quarterfinals or move the campus games to quarterfinals also, they have to give it due diligence. They have to look at every aspect of it and make a good decision. And some may take offense to that because they think, why would you change? Well, they're looking at it hard, not because they necessarily think it should change. They're looking at it hard because it's their job. It's their job to look at it. It's their job to represent their constituents. And it's their job to make the right decision because it's a lasting decision and it impacts everyone. So it's there. They're looking at it, and I think they will make the right decision for sure. But don't think for a moment that they don't value and understand what bowls bring to college football.
Looking for the ultimate bowling experience? Discover everything you need at gobowling.com. Find local bowling centers,
Sharpen your skills with pro tips, stay updated with the latest news, and grab exclusive deals. Whether you're a seasoned bowler or just playing for fun, start the fun now. Visit gobowling.com.
You and I have had some great conversations about your appreciation for the entire bowl system, not just the 6 CFP bowl games. You played on some very successful Air Force teams during your college days and had the opportunity to play in several bowl games. What are some of your memories from those experiences?
Oh, so let's see. First, we played in 4 bowl games. Let me see if I can remember. The Hall of Fame Bowl, where we beat Vanderbilt. The Independence Bowl, where we beat Ole Miss. The second Ole Miss. The second Independence Bowl, where we beat Virginia Tech. And then the Blue Bonnet Bowl, where we beat University of Texas. So what's that record? Let me think. That'd be 4-0, undefeated in bowl games.
You acted like you had to think about it. Like
I
you
did.
almost didn't remember those.
Did it look like I was trying to think about it?
You acted
okay,
well.
Good. That's what I was trying to do. That was the look I was going for. But here's what I remember about them, and it was set up here. We got treated so well at those games. I think at the Blue Bonnet Bowl, it was in Houston, we got to eat like 36-ounce steaks one day. I will never forget that. It was so good, especially coming from the Air Force Academy. You don't normally get a lot of steak there, so that was spectacular. I remember one of my teammates, there was a hypnotist that came. Both teams were in the room, and this hypnotist came, and he got someone from the stage, the studio audience or whatever, to come up, and it was one of my teammates and a University of Texas teammate. And they hypnotized him. He was a woman giving birth. And there was a woman up there that was like maybe a cheer team member that was the father. And they had him on the table with his legs up in stirrups, and his belly was, he stuck his belly out, and she was like, push, push. And he was pushing and breathing and stuff. And then his stomach went down, and she's like, it's a boy. And I was like, man, he is faking this. He's got to be. He didn't remember a thing about it. And we still give him grief about it. And I still wonder, how did he get a security clearance when he was hypnotized and out of it and doesn't remember that? But it was the funniest thing, and that was at a bowl game. And I remember the spandex watches. I still have 4 of them. Those Twist-A-Flex watches, they used to give you one every game. I still have all 4 of mine. They are prized possession. If our house was burning down, I would get my wife, I would get my watches, and then I'd get the kids. So it was, I love the things and the memories, but I will say this, the thing that was most important to me was competing with my teammates at the end of the year. That was our, the culminating game. And for us to come out and win those games and have that memory now 40 years later, it means everything. So I love what bowl games do for, of course, for the fans, for the community where those games happen. They introduced us to the community, but really just as a culminating point in the last play of the Bluebonnet Bowl, the defense was on the field. I played nose guard, and I remember when the game was done, standing there and going, man, that's it. I will never play football again. And just walking on the field, and my parents came out on there. They went to every one of those games. And my mom just hugging me and said, we're so proud of you. And I was just like, I can't believe it. But I remember it like it was yesterday. Now, I will say this, and our bowls that are within the CFP, though, are a little bit different. It's a little bit different. Where it was a culminating game for me, for those teams, this is the next step. And as much as they're celebrating and as much as they want to have a good time, they're there to win so that they can go on to the semifinals and hopefully on to the finals. So where, my experience in bowls was like most of the teams are going to have at your bowls, then the bowl games, the New Year's Six bowls that we have in the CFP are just a bit different. The teams are going to have a great time. They're going to get treated very specially, but they're there to advance. They're not going to be, some of them, one of the teams will be standing on the field going, this was my last time playing. but one of those teams is going to be we're going to the semifinals or we're going to the finals. So we always have to keep that in mind, and our bowl partners understand that, and they're finding a balance between, giving those teams the special treatment and letting them do all the great things that you do in a bowl game, but also making sure that they have every opportunity to win, that they're meeting the needs of the coaches and the institutions so that those teams are prepared and that they can go on to the next level if their team wins on the field. So it's a little bit different for those bowls, those 6 anyway, but all the rest of you're making memories like I have. Those teams, those players are going to remember every minute of it. Even the ones that lose the game. I don't know how to relate to that, but even the ones that lose are going to remember it because of what you do to make them feel special. And I appreciated that from the bowls that we were a part of.
I must say 4-0 in bowl games is impressive, but just going to 4 bowl games then, there's 41 traditional bowl games now that you're 6-6 you go. There was less than half of that number then. It was a big deal to go to a bowl game, but to win all 4, you had some really good teams there.
We did. We were 12-1 our senior year. In fact, my teammates and I, when we talk, we get together every, once a year or so, and all of them go, man, if we had CFP back then, we'd have played for the national championship. It's easy to say when it's 40 years removed, but this would have given us an opportunity because we ended up ranked 5th in the UPI poll and I think 8th in the AP poll. So we would have had a good shot of being in the CFP playoff, and from our perspective, we'd have won it all. So at least that's what we tell ourselves.
As you said earlier, you've been a part of the Air Force Academy for a lot of years after your playing days, ultimately becoming superintendent. So you were kind of like the biggest fan of Air Force football at that point. How about in your role as superintendent, are there any bowl games that stick out in your mind that were memorable or maybe most satisfying for different reasons?
We love the Armed Forces Bowl. We went there a couple times, and that was one where we were treated very well. And I think there was this sort of mutual respect between the teams and the Air Force Academy. So we loved that one. That was I was the commandant at the Air Force Academy of 2010 to 12. I was the superintendent for 4 years, so 6 years total. I never missed one football game my whole time in those 6 years. And every time we got to go to a bowl game, it was so special for our cadets, for them to be a part of that. And the Armed Forces Bowl was always special. We went twice while I was there, and it was just something that the students never forgot, just like I did. And I would always talk to them before they went. I'd say, look, this is such a privilege. Take advantage of it. Take this all in. Let your families take this in. For you seniors, it's your last game ever. Just enjoy it and love it and have a great time. But most importantly, go out and win. Go out and win. So.
You made a good point. We have 6 CFP bowl games. They're a little bit different than the 35 non-CFP bowl games, 36. But we like to say that college football's postseason is the best and the most unique in all of sports, and it's really a combination of college football playoff and bowl season together that makes it so great. Tell us, how can we all work together to continue making December and January a special time for college football?
Well, I think last year showed us that this is obviously football is a team sport, but this postseason is also a team sport. And rising tides raise all the ships. Rising tide raises all the ships. And so the CFP, like I said, I think it went very well. The bowl season was outstanding. Like you said, 14% increase in viewership. And all of that goes back to, I think, a spectacular regular season because people were in it. They were watching, they were dialed in because they wanted to see how the postseason was going to shape up. And so I feel like just the general added interest in college football helped all of us. And that's what we need to do. We all have to work together. We all have to ensure that we're making our part of the postseason as good as it can possibly be. But really, the more people can anticipate the postseason, the more they're going to focus on the regular season. And you get this sort of symbiotic effect, if that's the right word, but they rise us, we rise together. So I would just say continue to make your games great, continue to treat the teams in a special way like you do, and we're going to all see the impact of this. We just want to keep getting better. I promise you we're going to do our part at CFP to make our part as great as it can possibly be, but that's something we all need to do. Like I said earlier, there is no end to better. We all have to look back and figure out how do we make all the ships rise.
Excellent. Rich, thank you so much for answering my questions. I want to open it up to the audience if anybody has any questions for Rich.
So, Rich, is there any thought within discussions about moving up the season to start the season a week earlier to give you guys a little bit more space in postseason? That includes for the bowl season, guys.
I've heard that idea floated around, but right now that is it's not something that we're aggressively looking at. A lot of that really boils down to what the institutions, the presidents, the overarching schedule, because we have to remember these are students. They still have their academic responsibilities. So that impacts more than just college football, but it impacts academic schedules and things like that. So we haven't really talked about that in a serious way, but it's an idea that's out there because the season is getting so full. And if we were to go to 14, there's another weekend potentially of football. It could be done without another weekend. We just pack more into the weekend that it's in. But, that's one of the reasons why the commissioners have to really think hard about how they're going to change and how they're going to adjust the playoffs. So that's something that's out there, but it's not we haven't entertained that with any seriousness yet. But I imagine eventually we're going to have to talk about it. So a lot of pros and cons to that one.
With all the craziness going on with NIL and the transfer portal windows, last year we saw quite a bit of issue with player participation in the bowl games because of transfer portal window that's affected by NIL and all just the craziness. So I'm curious from your perspective, what are some changes that could potentially be made to really maximize player participation in the bowl games to really help fan engagement and attendance and everything all across the board?
Yeah. So I'll say that we just need some boundaries and the timelines for the transfer portal so that students can make their decisions, but still be able, if they want to transfer, to still be able to start at their new school on the academic season, be registered, and do the things that they need to do. So we just need to look at that holistically and figure out where it is. I mean, obviously it impacts us because our game is the last game of the season. And, students that are transferring out, it puts them in kind of a tough spot. So, I know that the decision makers on this one are considering everything to include how does it impact the postseason, because it impacts us as well. So we're obviously interested in this. But it's another one of those really tough decisions that the NCAA is dealing with. I sit on the FBSOC, the football FBS oversight committee. And it's a discussion point that we're trying to figure out. But I think there's going to be some clarity on that soon. It seems like things are moving. They're not moving really fast, but they are moving, the decisions. But it'll have an impact. And it's something I think we just need to wait and see how this all plays out. But it'll impact us at CFP for sure. You want to give them a mic for that one? I never heard a Navy grad say that out loud. You did, I know. Let's not talk about recent history.
But yeah, hey, look, being a former military officer, and my career was very short, especially compared to yours. But I think people in this room would probably love to hear, maybe a leadership story. There's a lot of leaders in this room. You had an illustrious military career, maybe something you can share with the group that they can take away and take back to their home offices.
Sure. So let's see. I think I will say this. All of the leaders, first, thank you, Brandon, for that question. And obviously, we with Air Force, Army, Navy, we are brothers and sisters 364 days a year. There's one day that we just can't get along. But otherwise, so I appreciate your service as well, sir. As far as leadership goes, this is one of the reasons, and I sort of alluded to this. I believe that football is probably the best leadership laboratory that a person can have. And I say that from the perspective of you have to deal with the ups and downs, the adversity, the physical risk, everything that you have to deal with in life. A person has to address that on the field, in practice, as a coach, as an administrator. You know, we're all involved in this. And when I think about some of the lessons that I got, and in fact, my core values are also our core values at CFP, and we talk about them as integrity, humility, and excellence. And when we talk about humility, and it drives our motto is from an integrity standpoint to lift others, to live honorably. Integrity means that you do the right thing even when nobody's looking, and that you live your life in an honorable way. And that's how we want to deal with our work at CFP, but all of us want to live our lives in a way that we can be proud of it and the people around us can trust us. When we talk about humility, humility doesn't necessarily mean that you think less of yourself. It means that you think of yourself less. And so our motto regarding humility is about lifting others. You lift others before yourself. You're not climbing on someone else's back to get ahead, to be better. You're trying to help other people get better. We talked about the rising tide lifting all ships. That's what that's all about. And then excellence. Excellence is, some people will say it's about being the best. It's about being number one. Really, from our view, excellence is about elevating performance. It's about being better today than you were yesterday. It's about better this year than you were last year. It's about elevating your performance and a mindset to always, always get better. So living honorably, lifting others, elevating performance. That's who we want to be at CFP. And I will say that a lot of that was ingrained in me as a football player, but it was also how I tried to lead as a commander in the military. And I'll just tell you one story. So the closest thing that I can ever equate being a football coach, which was my dream even as a lieutenant, I stayed back at the Air Force Academy and I was a grad assistant for 1 year. And I loved it. I said, man, I want to be a football coach forever. Well, the Air Force had other ideas in mind, and I became a pilot and I flew. But when I was a squadron commander, it's the leader of the team. A squadron commander leads a team of maybe 120 people. We have a number of aircraft. I flew the B-1 bomber. And I always tried to treat my squadron like I had coaches treat me. I tried to lead our squadron in the way that a coach does, to empower, to train, to prepare, to inspire your team as best you could. And so that's how I tried to lead. And the one story, you know, a lot of times you talk to a coach and someone will ask you, so what was your best football memory? You hardly ever hear them talk about something they did, because usually the coaches aren't as good as their players were. No offense to any of you coaches out there, but that was my experience. You know, I was a squadron commander. I was a flyer. I took my squadron to combat in Iraq, and I have one story that always stands out to me, and I wasn't even in the cockpit with this story, but it just tells me something about the values that people have when you try to instill them in them, like coaches do. And this, bless you, this was there was a first night of Operation Iraqi Freedom in 2003. Our squadron deployed, and we were in Oman, but we were flying into Iraq. And the war hadn't started yet, but we laid all our crews out, and we had one crew that was really, really young. And I had to put them into the lineup because I needed to have a certain number of crews to be able to fly these missions. And my leadership in the squadron was saying, don't put these guys in, they're too young, they can't. You know, they're just not ready. And I said, they've been trained, they have practiced, they're prepared. I don't have a choice. They got to be ready. And so they did. And on the second night of the war, they had to go off. And I went and personally talked to them, looked them in the eye. You guys ready to do this? And they couldn't have been more excited. They were just ready to go do the mission that they had trained for. It was, you know, war is not a game, not by any stretch, but war, when you think about things that you learn in sports and in athletics, it is directly translatable. And so I looked at these guys just like a coach would look at his players and say, are you ready to go out there and win this game? And you can see it in their eyes if they are or if they aren't. And these guys were. They were young, probably average age 25. And I said, okay, get it done.
This episode has been brought to you by Tap It. Understand how going cashless builds loyalty, engages fans, and boosts your bottom line.
Yeah. It's been a long time coming. It's been a long, long time. Yeah. This is how